The first game, it was a big thrill for us all. You know, I'm a big Liverpool fan anyway, so since I was a young boy. But yeah, it was when you look at the team that played that day for Liverpool. I mean, I'm not sure whether the current European Cup winners or went on to win it the next year. But yeah, the game sort of flashed by, and for me, Dickie Johnson was outstanding. Elfyn Edwards, he had Dalglish in his back pocket, let's say. I'm going to say another word then, but I won't. And I do recall, I think the last 5 or 10 minutes of that 0-0 draw, we could have pinched it in actual fact, because I just put a neat little through ball to Stevie Pett, and he caught it on the rise. It just skimmed the bar. And I gutted, like, you know, that'd have been nice, taking to go to Anfield 1-0 up. But it wasn't to be, so...
There were 16,675 at Prenton Park that night, the kind of crowd that has rarely been seen before or since. Can you recall what the atmosphere was like? I mean, I know a lot of people would have come from across the water to support Liverpool, but can you remember like the occasion and what it felt like?
Yeah, it was... we've never seen a sort of a ram-packed ground as we knew, like, you know, so it was a capacity ground. And all the crowd were behind us. It was inspirational night, you know. And John King, I remember through every game, King, he used to say, right, an intimate breakdown of all the players, and he would spend 20 minutes. But I can't recall what he said about the Liverpool players, because we all knew anyway as such, you know. So we're just like, let's get out there, you know.
Elfyn famously, as you say, marked Dalglish out of the game that night. The two centre-halves for Liverpool that night, one of them would have been Alan Hansen. Who would have been the other centre-half? Phil Thompson, that's right. Yeah. So who would have been marking you?
It would have been Phil Thompson had marked me, and then I would mark Phil Thompson if they got a corner. But consequently, in the 46th minute, I think Phil Thompson scored. And I was reminded of this about 3 or 4 years ago when I met Phil Thompson. But he did say, "Oh, can you remember who scored the first goal that night?" And I gave him reeled about 4 or 5 players' names off, taking a mickey. And he said, "No, it was me. It was me." So yeah, but yeah, good night again at Anfield. But sadly, it wasn't to be.
What was it like coming up against someone like Phil Thompson? I mean, how much different was it to coming up against someone like him compared to your run-of-the-mill Division 3 or Division 4 centre-half?
Yeah, Phil knew what he was doing, and the centre-halves knew exactly what they're doing, just dropping off when they needed to be. But I can't think of a time when they had a good hold of us. I'm thinking struggle here. Yeah, but say Dickie Johnson again had a fantastic game at Anfield. You know, unfortunately, say Phil Thompson scored the first, and I think Dalglish got 2 more. So, but I do remember going into the bar after the game, and it was the Milk Cup in them days, and so we'd go into the players' bar, you know, mingle around, and went to the bar, and they only served milk. And I could look to the corner at Alan Kennedy, and he was gagging for a pint, which we all were gagging for a beer, you know. But yeah, it's milk, and so I could see some of the Liverpool players heading for the exit quickly, you know, for the pub shut.
Knowing some of the characters in the Tranmere dressing room as well as the Liverpool dressing room that night, I can't imagine that was particularly popular, that you get a glass of milk.
Well, I ordered a pint, but I got a pint of milk. So yeah, happy days.
Brilliant stuff. I mean, that's not the only famous cup game of that season either, because if we scan a little bit further down, in the first round of the FA Cup, you draw Leamington and you win 9-0, and you score a hat-trick. So tell us about that Leamington game.
Yeah, indeed. I actually just mentioned it to a couple of friends of mine, actually what the podcast was about. And I said, I can recall the AP Leamington game. We beat them 9-0. And it was like a George Best moment at Northampton when he scored the 6th goal. And it was a tap-in, and it couldn't be... It wasn't humiliation. It was a bit of respect for the team that were 9-0 down. So it was. I felt sorry for them. you know, but we had to go out and do a job, you know, and I'm sure plenty of other teams would have done the job on us. You know, so that was it. It's just a professional way to go through it, and we beat them 9-0, yeah, unfortunately. Well, fortunately.
But that kind of occasion, as you say, you feel a little bit sorry for them, but it must be the kind of occasion that also only comes around kind of once in your career, really. Can you remember any other game in your professional career that had that kind of scoreline?
Oh, no, not really. No, 9-0, no, that was it. Yeah, I think we had a pre-season friendly. We played a college team or something, but yeah. But no, not 9-0, that's been the highest, yeah.